Welcome to Turkish-American Hour. My name is Suzan Ok, and today I will be interviewing our guest speaker, Sue Shumate. So, please tell us about your background.
Thanks, Suzanne, and thank you for inviting me here today. So I have a very recent background as an artist. I have a lifelong love of art, but more recently I have started becoming what I would call an artist in miniatures. After 40 years of training and education in my other world, I am now using miniatures to take the larger world and depict them in a small setting. So I have been doing this for about the last 6 years is the time frame.
How did you get interested in miniatures?
When I was a child, my mother bought two tiny miniatures for me. One was Jiminy Cricket, the other was Pinocchio. And I loved the two miniatures. They were very small and very fun to put into little worlds. So I've always had an interest in miniatures. More recently, about 6 years ago, the Washington Post had a Peep diorama contest. I thought to myself, I can make a Peep diorama, and I did ancient Egyptian Peeps. And I submitted my Peeps to a contest with the Post, and that was the first year that I thought I would start looking at miniatures in the Peep world. What I found out is that the Peep world is a very large world. There are contests, national contests out of St. Paul, Minnesota. We have the local contests. The Washington Post no longer offers them. But my interest came in starting with the interest of Peeps and then building the small world and telling a story by using Peeps. So that's where the interest started, back to my childhood, but more recently as an artist, was through that experience of submitting to the Peep diorama contest with the Washington Post.
Thank you, that's really fascinating. You've mentioned submitting your Peep dioramas to the Washington Post. How did that go? And have you had any other experiences with diorama competitions?
The first year, nothing. I didn't hear anything back. So I started looking at what the winning Post dioramas looked like, and I decided, well, second year I've got to step up my game. The second year I did a Peep showdown. So it was a Peep diorama done with horses and wagons and buggies. This is a showdown. It was sheriff and women along the streets. It had a whole look and feel of a Wild Wild West. That one was one of my favorites. It also did not place or show at the Washington Post diorama event. The third year, I planned literally the entire year. I looked for the right Washington Post article. I wanted to be able to take something from the news and put it into a diorama. So I finally found the perfect article. It was about dinner en blanc. It's where people go to, they have a special destination, they have to dress in white, bring white tablecloths, everything has to be in white. I put this diorama together and I put a little minion in a tree with a red spray can. It was my little bit of a twist because he was going to be he was going to upset the dinner en blanc. I waited for the Washington Post to announce. I never heard anything on the diorama contest. So I reached out to them and they said, well, this year we're not doing it anymore. We did it for 10 years and we're not going to have the Peep diorama this year. So good as luck would have it, I found another contest. It was with the Pioneer Press in St. Paul, Minnesota. And so I submitted my diorama to them. And again, I did not win, but and they have the opportunity for the public to vote. So that's where I actually displayed the third time. By the fourth year, I got really, really smart. And on the fourth year, I submitted to the Pioneer Press the portraits of President and Mrs. Obama Peep And
Wow.
that one was the national winner that year. It took me 4 years to be able to understand the art, to understand the craft, and really understand how to put together a diorama that had winning qualities to it. So that's how I worked with my peeps, and that's how I actually was able to get to the point of winning one of the competitions.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad that you were able to do that and win one of the competitions. You've started off with Peeps, which are already very small media to work with, but I see that you've transitioned into even smaller artwork. How did that transition go for you?
I decided after doing Peeps for so long, my creativity and my energy comes from trying to take a concept and seeing how small I can make it. And it's really all about telling stories. And so the Peeps were fun, and they were a part of a larger venue that I could submit to. But then I started thinking about what could I possibly do to do more artistic work. So I looked online, I started seeing how people were taking their concept of miniatures and putting them in with compacts, with tins, with smaller media that they were using. And what I did is I started taking different stories and just creating them. And once I made the first story, which was really the story in this particular compact about two lovers, and they're walking in a park, but their hands are barely touching, and they're walking away from each other. It leaves it open to the person who's viewing it, their interpretation. Are they passing a note? Are they walking away from each other?
Mm-hmm.
Or are they just getting a glimpse of each other as they pass? Is it some just random act when two people are passing? I like to tell a story, and I like to let people kind of figure out what they want to do with the story themselves. I have other stories that are, this particular one is done in a tin, and it's got a picture of probably a Victorian couple where the woman is on the arm of the man. But this one is called More Than a Pretty Face. And it has powerful women standing in front of this woman who's on the arm of the man that's behind her or with her. The others have different stories that I've built in, and the intent is for me to be able to create a story that's very small, that is aesthetically beautiful, that somebody can look at and say, oh, this is so pretty. But if they take more time, then they can actually see where the story brings them. Because some of them, you have to actually look past them into the compact mirror, and you see yourself in the mirror. And that's where you can see yourself in the story. You can kind of figure out what your role is as you're looking at that piece of art.
I really love that, and I love how you've used the compact mirror and also some ambiguity to give people the choice to decide what kind of story they're looking at. What does your art aim to say?
So I think what I want my art to say is I want it to tell a real story for the viewer. Sometimes it's a hard story. Sometimes it's a beautiful story. It can be a love story or it can be a challenging story. I sometimes will do something that has a political impact. Other times it's a romantic impact. One of mine, it has a beautiful background. It's a compact with beautiful jewels on the back. But when you look at the piece, it's a woman sitting on a bottle of wine with a man standing over her. And it's called Hard Habit to Break. And it's a hard habit to break because she probably has an addiction problem, but she also may be in an abusive relationship. So I've turned their backs to the viewer so that if you look into the mirror, you're able to see yourself and determine if this is a world that you fit into or don't fit into. So the ultimate goal is to tell the story well enough that the viewer can take several different things from the story and be able to apply it to their lives, or to just enjoy it being a finicky story that they've been able to see and enjoy.
How has your artwork evolved over time?
So really over the past 6 years, it's been an interesting journey as my skills have gotten better and as my understanding has gotten better. So if you think about the early days, 6 years ago doesn't seem early, but that's my early days, when I was doing the Peep diorama contest to now when we're doing these smaller miniatures that I'm exhibiting in galleries, to the point I'm also looking at more of my photography and how I can intermix my miniatures with photography to make them into what would look more like a portrait, a painting that someone has done. So I've been able to take this miniature look and feel that you have in front of you today, and I've been able to put them into pieces that are look more like art that you would display on a wall. So I think that it's been an interesting journey. It's been a period of change, and the changes, it keeps on changing as I get better with what I'm doing. Mostly my evolution is in my thinking and my creativity. When I am inspired with a thought, I then can take those thoughts and build them into a new piece. And so I have opened my aperture for what's in the realm of possible. From the Peep diorama, which was a fun thing to do, to the miniatures that I've actually started to sell, and then now finally into more artwork that is more types of that you would display on a wall. So that's the evolution and the maturation of my art that I've had over this past 6 years.
What inspires your creations?
I think I'm inspired by the world around me, the people around me, circumstances around me. A great example is a piece that I did called COVID Economics. I created small people that were waiting to get food into a compact. They were people that probably were very recently unemployed, and they had masks and they were waiting for food. It shows what's happening in the world today. So that one was a benchmark on what had happened to people through COVID-19. So that is taking those kinds of thoughts and then how do I put them into something that can tell the story to where it's impactful and people would be interested in it. Other times I might have a love story in my mind that I want to create. The most recent one that I did is Marie Antoinette. I had a friend who said, I really wanted this Marie Antoinette diorama and the woman never made it for me. And she sent me a photo of it. So my art is not the same as the other artist's diorama, but I said, I think I can do that. So I took the concept and I created it for her. So what she didn't have, now she has in just my art form. The others, sometimes it's whimsical. It just can be something that I'm just finding fun, or I'll find a beautiful miniature and then I will create the concept around it, or I will find the perfect tin or compact, and the longer I look at them, the more I can say, I have a story to tell with this, and the minute I get the story in my head, then I can bring it all together. For example, I've got individuals who are getting married. I wanted to get an engagement type of a look. I wanted to get a wedding look. I've got the parks look. So it really is driven more by what is either happening in the world, what's happening to my family, what's happening to with what I see in the miniature or in the piece that I'm going to put the miniature into. So that's what really inspires me.
Where do you exhibit your artwork?
My artwork is shown at Del Rey Artisans Gallery in Alexandria, Virginia. They have fantastic themed exhibits that run about a month long. So they will put out in advance, they will call for artists to submit their creations. They will have a theme around that particular exhibit, and I will spend time going back to what we just talked about. I will look at what the theme is, take that, and then I will see if I have some kind of inspiration that I can then put my art into that themed exhibit. So Del Rey is the place that I exhibit, and I've just found that it's been a fantastic place to, first of all, introduce me as a relatively new artist to get the galleries, try to understand what the customers are looking for. Am I reaching that target audience or not? And then be able to grow with each show, making sure that I'm taking what I've learned and apply it as I then continue creating.
Thank you. That's great that you're able to get your artwork out in public, in front of an audience.
On another note, I recently won the People's Choice Awards for the 2021 Pioneer Press competition. So the Pioneer Press every year has a competition. The one that I had mentioned earlier that I won for President Obama and Mrs. Obama, the presidential portraits. This year I did Chick Peep's Gambit, which is a tribute to the Queen's Gambit. So it just won the People's Choice Award for 2021.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad that you were able to do that and win one of the competitions. Thank you for sharing all that. And it was so lovely to see your Wild West Peeps and your Luncheon Peeps. They're so adorable. I think it's so clever. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your lovely artwork and experience with us. I've learned so much and I'm so inspired by your work. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
And thank you for inviting me to come today. It's been a wonderful time that we've spent together, and I'm looking forward to being able to hearing about future artists that are also highlighted on this particular session. Thank you very much.